Nice to see you all. Thanks for joining us. I guess I'll call the meeting to order. And in a motion to accept the minutes of March 11th and March 20th.
Yeah, so.
Okay. Any changes or amendments to minutes? No hearing. All those in favor of adoption, give by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, it's unanimous. Guess we're gonna talk to Dot for a minute on the PBJ audit.
So maybe you could just describe to the commissioners what the nature of the audit was. I mean, I can tell you that the purpose of the PBJ report was facilities, some facilities were less than honest about reporting their staffing. Because as you know, staffing is part of the rating system.
Right.
For nursing homes. So the Fed said, we don't really. This is not a true and accurate representation of staffing consistently throughout the year. So they created the payroll-based journal, which we call the PBJ report. And, as far as I know, for the first time, we went through an audit all the documents and the information that we provided. So now I'll turn it over to Don.
Right, so when I was looking this up, why they would have done the audit, we have a lot of bailiffs. And we have a lot of people that were working overtime because of the nursing shortages, and a lot of the questions were towards the bailiffs. They worked 36 hours, like, get paid for 40. So they were kind of concerned about that, how we were reporting that. So we explained how we reported, how they worked, and then they thought that was fine. The other thing is making sure that people that were working overtime, because we had a lot of people that were working 2 shifts in a row, a double shift. And for every 8 hours, you have to tell them that they have a half hour of a meal time. And they were concerned that we weren't reporting that on the second shift, we were also giving them a half hour for their break.
Yeah.
So that was one of the big things they were looking for. So we went through all our people, so they audited 14 people, and there was several bailiffs. So at first we're like, maybe it's the bailiffs. But then from what I'm reading in journals and stuff, it's more making sure that we're telling the people, yes, they work 8 hours, but these people have a half hour break. So we are reporting that they are working 7.5 hours, and that was the crux of the whole thing. And so, with Ray's help and Dee, and we all got together and, we had a questionnaire. We filled out the questionnaire, and, some of the questions we had no idea, and that's where Ray came in and Dee, and they're very helpful in that. And we submitted everything that they needed in a timely basis, and then that was in October. And I think we got the report back, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, so I've been sweating, I don't know. But I've been sweating it all that time, thinking, I hope we're doing everything, we're complying with it. But we were, so that was, we really were very happy with that.
That's a major accomplishment.
Yeah.
Because they're tracking, as I said, they're tracking every one of these things so that the ultimate goal is to ensure that they produce an accurate 5-star rating
Right.
system.
Right.
And they look for these, what they would consider abnormalities in an audit. I believe we're the only, I haven't checked, but we will check on the 18th. When, whether or not anybody else was audited. But I believe we were one of the only ones. And I think some of it was just random because
Yeah.
what we were doing was no different than what anybody else was doing.
Right.
In terms of, how we were reporting our staffing. So I just wanted these ladies to be recognized for an outstanding job and a huge amount of work because they had their other jobs too.
Right.
We didn't hire them to do this audit, so they did all of this and worked on their other job. So I wanted to be sure that they got the credit they deserve for all of this work.
Thank you.
You know, I was trying to figure out when we first mentioned this to me back several months ago. I remember seeing a press conference that the president had, that he was trying to make an attempt to ensure that there was proper staffing for nursing homes across the country.
Correct.
And I think that's probably what's triggered this, because they're trying to figure out whether he should or should not regulate CMS in that manner. So they gotta determine nationally whether people,
Correct.
where the facilities sit, you know, in terms of staffing.
Right, right.
Whether, you know, they had a lot of problems down south. I was reading an article of when Biden did that, there was a lot of homes down south that were, you know,
Yeah, a lot of your private homes,
yeah, they just,
they don't staff an RN 24 hours a day.
yeah.
And, you know, I was talking to Son about this and staffing and all that, and he said that, we already, have the requirements for that. So if, when it comes into place, we have 5 years, when it comes into place, we're all set, because we've already addressed that issue.
Yeah, as you know, we have an RN supervisor all shifts. In addition to that, the staffing at Hyder is always an RN.
Right.
But in addition to that, we always try and have at least a second RN. So that if for some reason the supervisor isn't available. The other thing that we do is we take our management nurses and ask them to be responsible for a weekend. I think there's 7 or so people that, and that way, if for some reason we're short in RN, we pay them like we pay the on-call deputies, you know, to be available that weekend. So they really can't go anywhere, they can't really consume any alcoholic beverage, they can't. I mean, when it comes to on-call, the call goes to me, but I obviously can't work as a nurse, so. You know, we compensate them for the coverage, and that way we know that we'll always have an RN available.
Well, I think, you know, the commissioners have always wanted to support adequate staff for the nursing home, and be given the physical constraints at the building, the challenges the present building gives us, you know, we make it up with staffing. And the fact that the staff does a tremendous job with the folks who are taken care of, and the demographic of the type of folks who are taken care of now, which has changed dramatically, you know, over the last, at least the time I've been here, which is too long, probably. It's just I think just the staff does an amazing job over there with the environment that we're dealing with.
Right.
Which is one of the reasons why the commission was so adamant about trying to build a new facility. Because we recognize that. But thank you, Dottie, for all the work you folks did on this.
It's the 3 of us,
Yeah.
we work together as a team,
Yeah.
for sure.
I appreciate that work, and
We can do it during the meeting or after.
it'll help us, you know, with our rating system.
Right, definitely.
I always get nervous when they tell us we're gonna have a 5-star rating, because there's only one place you can go, and that's down. Yeah, that makes sense. But
I get it.
it's all as a result of the hard work and the staff. You folks make us look good. And I certainly appreciate
That's what we should do.
Yeah, well,
We strive to do that, for sure.
yeah, you guys
Yeah.
do a great job over there. Can't say enough, can't brag enough about the work that you guys do. You know, it's a tremendous amount of work and effort. And I just wish we had a new facility for people to work in. That's
Someday.
someday
Someday.
we'll get it.
We'll get there.
Yeah, someday we'll get to it, you know? So, my colleagues have anything else they want to add at this point? No? All right, then we're gonna move on to.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good day.
Nice work, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Hope so, right?
We'll send up the flag.
Yeah.
upside down.
All right, so we got some. I got some cross-country folks here, huh?
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, thank you for having us here today. It's a pleasure to be able to tell our story again. Back in 1976, I was part owner of a pub in Meredith called the Mug. And maybe some of you have been there. I don't know if you-
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been there.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay. Well, Scott was a Mason, and Scott and I were good friends, became good friends over the years. And we were members of the JCs, the Meredith JCs.
Yeah.
And the Meredith JCs wanted us to do a bicentennial project to commemorate our nation's 200th birthday. So Scott and I said, well, why don't we help the Massachusetts-based JCs recreate the Battle of Bunker Hill? Because New Hampshire had a large contingent of men at the Battle of Bunker Hill. Well, the Massachusetts JCs wanted nothing to do with us. They wanted the whole thing for themselves. So one night at the Mug, Scott and I probably had one too many beers and said, let's walk across the whole country. Before we knew it, we had bragged about we were gonna do it to so many people that March 15th was coming closer, we had to. So on March 15th, we went up to Portland, Maine, and touched the water. And we had hiking boots that were donated to us by L.O. Bean. And we had those boots on, which, and looking back, that was probably a mistake, because they gave us wicked blisters.
Yeah, 'cause you had to break
We
them.
should have worn,
break the shoes in, yeah.
yeah, we should have worn sneakers. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So March 15th, we took our first step from Portland, Maine. We walked 3,281 miles. Took us 132 days. So we averaged 25 miles a day. And,
Wow.
well, people think that's a big deal. But back then, it didn't seem like a big deal to us. People work 8 hours a day, they do whatever they want 8 hours a day, and they sleep 8 hours a day. So that's exactly what we did. We walked 8 hours a day, that was our work. We slept 8 hours a day, and in our case, we partied 8 hours a day.
East of the Mississippi, the towns are awful close together, so. And we had an advanced man in a van, Chris Hurd from Meredith. He took basically 4.5 months out of his life to, he'd be a day ahead of us.
Making sure you had at least some water stops or something, huh?
Yeah, he would hook up with the local JCs or the Elks or the Rotary clubs and say, hey, these two guys have left Portland, Maine, and they're heading to some Santa Monica, and can you help them out? So it was really a big, Chris was a great fellow to have, and he had a great personality. He could talk to people, and we really needed him. He made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for us, did our laundry.
Lots of them.
Yeah, he was a good man. Chris later went into the Navy, was a submariner for 10, 11 years. And he came out, I think he worked for one of the facilities in Connecticut, and now he's back in New Hampshire.
Yeah, how long did you own the pub for?
What?
How long did you own
Oh, the Mug?
Yeah, the mug.
We bought it in 1972.
Okay.
And I think we sold it about 1990. To a fellow named Joe Drukas, who was a local musician. And,
Huh.
we carried a letter from Governor Longley of Maine to Governor Jerry Brown of California with us the whole way, a bicentennial greeting. And when we got to Santa Monica, Jerry Brown was too busy with his presidential campaign back at the time.
Yeah.
So he didn't show up to receive the letter. So he sent Miss California there to meet us. So we met
That
Miss
must have put
California.
a smile on your face.
That was probably a better trip.
I had no complaints with that.
Our worst day was 9 miles on the second day out on the Maine-New Hampshire border. there was a northeaster and
Yeah.
a lot of snow.
Hmm.
In our best days, we had several 37, 38, 39 miles in Kansas one day.
Yeah.
And, of course, Kansas,
Yeah.
pretty flat, but there, people in America are really, really warm. You know, coming from New Hampshire, New England, you think you're, you know, the cats meow, but the farther west we got, the friendlier the people became, you know, we would have a farmer jumping off his tractor, heard you on the radio, and you're gonna stay with us tonight. And on the other side of the highway, the farmer would get off his machine and, oh, you're gonna stay with us tonight. George would say, what are you serving for dinner? But we, yeah, it wasn't all fun and games. I was in the hospital in on the Pennsylvania, Ohio border. I had to get some blisters cut off my feet.
Ooh.
So, I lost,
Ooh.
several days. I had to hitch a ride in a van. And wasn't until central Ohio I could get back on my feet again. But, George, of course, took up the slack.
One of the amazing things, Mr. Chairman, is George shared with me a journal that he kept. Pretty much a day by day
Yeah.
account of everything that went on. And when I read it, it felt like I was there, you know, walking with him, and it was just an amazing. I brought it home one night and started to read it. My wife went to bed early and I said, she said, I'm gonna stop. I couldn't put it down because I felt like I was there every day that you guys did something. You know, I knew about your time in the hospital. I knew about your time in the van when George was, you know, moving around alone, and all the people that George had everybody's name, who put you up, what you ate for dinner that night. He had all those things, and it was just fascinating. And you know, these George was kind enough when I asked him to come and just let you guys know about his journey. And so thrilled that you would accompany him. That, I mean, here, you know, that was great, but it was just I don't know, these George is a representative of the great people, the great residents, and the great accomplishments that a lot of our residents have had at Riverside. And in this debate, you know, about new nursing homes and things, I think sometimes we forget, you know, that these are the people that we're providing space for. And George keeps me on my toes. We'll email nights, weekends, back and forth, you know, about things, and it's a real pleasure, you know, for me to be involved with a great man like him and his partner, and I forget the name of the gentleman that drove the van.
Chris Hurd.
Chris Hurd. And you know, who certainly played an important role, and the van was donated.
Yes, by a budget
Budget
rent-a-car.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, they donated the van for the cross-country trip. And there's some nights you have to sleep in the van, but not too many. You know, most of the time you guys got a comfortable bed to sleep in.
Right, right. Yeah, Missouri, the show me state, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, we would have several instances where locals would, because we were facing traffic when we were walking. But several locals would come up, hey, you want to ride? And we'd decline it for us, and 3 miles later, we'd see him sitting on the front porch of the country store down the road, you know, they had to be shown that, we're walking.
Come on, we'll give you a ride. We won't tell anybody.
And you guys ate more steaks than it seemed like every other meal was a steak at somebody's house.
Yeah, and that was kind of tough, because I mean, every town wanted to give us celebration, and you couldn't walk 25 miles the next day after that. You had to, sometimes we would have to avoid the towns just to get some good night's sleep.
And sometimes you guys were up to 2 or 3 in the morning, perhaps,
My brother Rick,
vibing a little.
my brother Rick was working in Ames, Iowa, so when we crossed the Mississippi in Quincy, he came down to walk with us for a few days, bought a big bottle of champagne when we crossed. Do you remember that?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And, yeah, that was a fun weekend. Also in Missouri, then they had a lot of cattle mutilations going on then. You remember that, all that UFO stuff? That was kind of.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Never solved it.
Well, I'd have difficulty flying across the country, never mind walking. You know?
My wife just retired after 34 years for the town of Holderness, and so we drove across the country 7 weeks. We just got back a week ago. And,
You couldn't convince her to walk again?
Can I ask a question?
yes,
Did you gentlemen do any training for it, or did you just say
not enough, because I was my father was a stonemason, so I was
Pretty good shape.
pretty good shape.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I was 22 years old.
Yeah.
Mm.
I asked because my wife and I are gonna do a walk, and it's nowhere near that, and we've been training for a while, and it's quite a bit.
Where are you
so
walking?
It's called the Mammoth March. It's down in Hingham, Mass. It's a 20-mile walk that you have to do in 8 hours. If you guys are crushing 25, 30 miles in 8 hours, I'm feeling pretty comfortable about that, but you know, we walked, I don't know, 13 miles last weekend, and that was a lot. I can only imagine doing
You do that
it
every
one
day.
day and then waking up and being like, yeah, let's do that again. That's
The
some
toughest-
intestinal fortitude right there.
I think the toughest hike was Hogback Mountain, Vermont,
I remember that, yeah.
over Route 9. That was a son of a gun.
Mm.
It was nasty weather too, years later.
Yes. By the time we got to the Rockies, we were in pretty good shape.
Sure.
Wolf Creek Pass was pretty easy.
Now, this journal, are any of us allowed to read that journal?
We'll make a copy of
Because I
yours.
would love to read that.
Yeah.
Because you offered for us to, make a copy.
Well, I have one right here if you want this.
Okay, is that a copy?
Yeah,
Okay,
I've got a spare.
okay.
Yeah.
You'll really appreciate that journal. It is great fun.
I would hear Ray giggling from the other room and I'd say, what are you laughing at? Well, he's gonna tell me the story about where they were on this night, what you were drinking or doing.
Well, before we depart, I'd like to share with you a blue ribbon eulogy from the White Mountain Toastmasters. Would you like to hear it?
Love it.
I have to stand up for it. Okay. I'm looking it up. I have stood before you in frolic and fun, but you can fold up your smiles and store them away, for you'll hear no humor from me today. With a heavy heart, I come to lament the loss of a dear and trusted friend, of an individual of high and mighty character, one who never spoke a word but filled volumes, one who never took a step but walked with giants. That trusted friend was New Hampshire's first citizen, guardian of the White Mountains, the Great Stone Face. He was courted by congressmen, senators, princes, and presidents, but his favorite audience was the common folk like you and me. He was always up there letting us know that we should carry on and bear the burden. For if he could do it, surely we could also. Native American lore tells us he was formed by the Great Spirit from the soul of a brave who fell in love with an Indian princess. As fate would have it, the beautiful princess was betrothed to a chief of a warring tribe far to the south. Their union would bring peace between their nations. But she promised her love she would return. Once she explained to the chief her heart belonged to another, surely he would release her from her obligation. The young brave watched as she descended the valley. Through the summer and fall, he never left his post. When it came time for the tribe to migrate to winter grounds, the brave remained behind, ever faithful. In the spring, when the tribe returned, he was nowhere to be found. They searched and searched, finding only his lance and coat. Then gazing up in bewilderment, they beheld the great stone face, forever looking southward for the return of his princess. Below him, a crystal clear lake formed by his tears. What would the native people today think with the fall of the great stone face? Would they look on it as foreboding, a bad omen? Would they say he fell in love with his reflection, was punished for his vanity? Or would they take it all in stride and reflect? Everything has its season, its time in the sun. Science tells us the White Mountains were formed millions of years ago by tectonic forces deep within the earth, heaving up the granite bedrock to be the mightiest mountains on the planet. But 4 ice ages and eons of time have taken their toll and whittled down those lofty peaks to their mellow majesty like vintage wine. Both Nathaniel Hawthorne and Daniel Webster believed Providence had a hand in creating the great stone face. That's more than I know. But what I do know is he held mystical powers, limited only by one's imagination. Sentinel of the White Mountains, guardian of the hills and rills, reminding all of us to tread softly, to be careful not to step on that small sapling or the budding flower, to carry in and carry out and leave no trace upon the ground. But now he belongs to the poets of the past, for the pipes have called him home. Hang no false icons in his place, a simple marker will suffice. Like a good soldier, he did his duty, he fell at his post. Now it is up to us to carry on the work he so nobly stood for, so his legend will grow, and we will remember to carry in and carry out and leave no trace upon the ground. So rest in peace, old friend, for a job well done. We sure do miss you. We'll do a Boston Marathon next week.
Yeah, but yes, yeah,
The weather's gonna be great.
You have a couple days to get ready for it.
This is a walking stick across the continent. I promised my daughter she wants it, so it's in the will, she gets it.
Yeah.
But the stick helped with a cadence when you're marching, and also with rattlesnakes, dogs.
I was wondering about those rattlesnakes out there. You guys have
Yeah,
I imagine you came across a few of them.
Yeah, we did one, remember?
it's mentioned in the book.
Look, yeah.
Yeah, it's mentioned in the
Because
book.
we were walking at night, when we split it up, when we got to the south, where it was so hot, and
During the day.
the snakes would come up to the pavement at night
Right.
for warmth, and that's where you're walking. Plus there were a lot of folks that would leave the reservation, because you couldn't buy hard booze on the reservation, and they'd go to Durango or Cortez to buy liquor, and they'd play tag with no headlights on, and pretty scary there for a while, wasn't it, George?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Well, gentlemen,
Yeah.
we can't thank you enough for coming in and sharing that with us.
Thank you.
And George, you keeping me on my toes.
Oh, yeah, will do.
We get good things accomplished with that, I think.
Yep.
Well, it's a fascinating story. Well,
And God bless you guys for
yeah, but thanks.
setting an example like that.
Thank you.
Now, I noticed how west, as we went further west too, the counties do a lot more.
Yeah.
Out west, in the area, there's a county roads,
Yeah.
fire departments are county, so you don't need a hook and ladder in every town, they communicate a lot more.
Yeah.
Around here, there's a lot of friction between
Oh,
towns.
Yankees.
Yes, exactly.
That's all it is.
I
We could,
can-
say- we could probably cut our property tax burden by a third if we changed the way we were doing business.
I think you're right.
I've seen it for 50 years, and it's just, everybody has to have their own little
Yeah, a little piece of.
Empire.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. But that's the, it's the Yankee way, everybody wants their own deal, well.
Nice meeting y'all, folks.
It was nice to meet you both.
George, we'll see ya, buddy. You need anything, you know how to reach me, buddy.
Oh, I sure do.
I think I understand now why you're in that wheelchair, all that walking for crying out loud.
Ray, I'd like a copy of that.
What I can do is scan it, I can
Yeah.
email it.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
I'll tell you, it is
I would
fascinating.
love it.
It is fascinating.
It could be put into some kind of a book that could be used in the schools.
Yeah, because it's, you have to have a talented writer to blend it,
Blend it.
because it's just like a snapshot of every day,
Yeah.
and, I just,
The diary.
I appreciate, it's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I appreciated it because I didn't, when George told me about it on kind of the anniversary of him doing it, I didn't really appreciate the magnitude of, what he had done and the length of time and the kindness of the people all the way across the country, was astounding. Was truly astounding. They rarely slept in the van. They, most of the time had, sleeping in people's houses and eating dinner with them and celebrating. And sometimes, as he mentioned, 8 hours of partying. Yeah, I mean, there was a few things that you'd read in there where he regretted partying as late as he did, understanding that the next morning they were gonna be walking. But it was really, it really touched me, and I, knowing you all, I know you feel the same way.
Yeah, fabulous story. I think you said it best, right? It's just that those are the types of people those are the faces of the people that we're serving, and sometimes you get lost, it gets lost and the public debate about what it is we're trying to do. It just gets lost. Well, anyway. Let's move on to item number 3, which is to approve and sign the bargaining agreements for the 4.
We'll have those available for you to
I think
sign.
Janet has them.
I'm sorry?
Janet has them.
Janet has
All
it right here.
Well, we can do it inside too. Yeah, there's a lot to sign, so.
So as you know, Mr. Chairman, that's a representation of 4 or 5 months of negotiations with each of the 5 bargaining units.
4.
It's 11th.
The 4 bargaining units.
I don't know what the date is.
Today's the 11th.
Yeah.
I'm like you, Dean, I lose track of the day to your,
Oh, my God, we're approaching mid-April.
That's why.
This one's fine.
Crazy.
Tax day.
Okay, great, thank you. Oh, just one, I need to say.
yeah, it's easy one today. So, it's like-
So once, once the negotiations finished, we swap every other contract with who, creates the wording changes, and I know you all have been briefed on each one of these contracts in
Yeah.
executive session, because you were a key in having these things accomplished, but we can't do that in public, because that just ruins our negotiation.
Okay,
And with that, on today's date, the employees will receive their
they're back.
back pay.
Hey,
Yeah, because as you know, all these contracts are annual contracts,
yeah,
but cannot be paid out until the delegation approves the budget.
right.
And everybody signs the contracts, and now the back pay will be distributed.
Okay. Item 4 is some upcoming events. High schools are visiting the facility. Item 5, old and new business, you guys want to discuss?
I have some new business, right?
What do we got?
You're on.
I have a couple of things. One is the CDBG Rochester Child
Yeah,
Care
which would actually
Project.
be old business.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Doesn't make it, yeah, we know it, we know about it, we visited the facility.
Yeah, so they did, they
Finally,
have
okay.
started work on it.
Finally?
And what we have to do is, Ray signed off on a manifest to reimburse Rochester Child Care and Donna Lane for the work that they've done so far. It's about $83,000 so far. And so we have to, with each CDBG grant, open up a separate checking account for the money to come in, and then we pay Rochester Child Care and Donna Lane. So what I have here is the authorization to open up the account with these signers. And then I have a signature card
Yeah.
for each of you to sign as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So those are the two.
Alrighty.
And Pam will be in, right?
She's supposed to be.
Yeah, and Janet, so as the treasurer.
Well, I'm glad that, they finally got this thing, I think it was about a year ago we visited.
Feels like
Yeah,
a year ago.
yeah.
You know, we sponsored that project and, I know that Representative Grassi had called to
Wonder what was going on with it.
wonder what was going on with it.
ARPA, the next item. I guess. So then what I just passed out to each of you is our quarterly report on ARPA. And so, we had a balance at the end of the year of just a little over $1.5 million in ARPA funds, and that was in regular ARPA. Well, when our auditors were here, we consulted with them, and so we recalculated our lost revenue or revenue replacement. And so we transferred that $1.5 million over to the revenue replacement because we were able to capture $17 million of lost revenue over since 2021, when this all began, 2020, actually. So, yeah, the lost revenue has reached over $17 million. So we moved that $1.5 million over to revenue replacement. It just gives a little bit more flexibility as to what the funds can be used for, because we're not really using it for COVID at this point. There really isn't that much expense for COVID at this point. So we transferred that, and then there were some end of year accruals back and forth, for the HVAC project, some supplies and whatnot. So what we're looking to do is to transfer $673,000 for those expenses. There weren't any expenses in the first quarter. This is just the adjustments at the end of the year with accruals.
So that was last year's, so it's basically.
Yeah, this is post audit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So by starting with the 1.5 million, transferring it to revenue replacement, drawing down $673,000, it will leave us at the end of March with $900,000 in revenue replacement.
How are we making out with hearing about this, the rooftop, the additional ARPA money that might be available from the state?
I haven't
We haven't heard.
heard. I can follow up and ask again. Yeah.
So as a result of all these are post transfers that were.
Accruals, because we
Right.
did this in January, and then in February, we had bills for the HVAC come in that were really December bills but we didn't get them until February. We always have accruals, but at the end of the year, we have to accrue everything
Right.
and whatnot. So that's the net result. And again, we didn't have any expenditures in the first quarter of this year, so that's,
And this is the net audited result.
Okay.
yeah, this has all been
Budget
audited. This has
post
been
audit.
part of the single audit,
Single audit,
so we're all, everything
yeah,
matches,
matches,
yeah,
okay.
so.
That
it-
way, when we submit our final documents to ARPA, you know,
Yeah.
as we're approaching submitting our final documents, we can submit our audit right with it.
Right.
Cause you know, there's no way that, the feds are going to audit every single governmental entity that received ARPA funds. So there's been an enhanced pressure on our auditors to, you know, complete the single audit act and to have every, you know, penny match up.
All the testing has been done for the single audit for 2023, and there were no findings, so we're in really good shape
Great.
with that. So I guess I'm just looking for your approval to transfer the $673,000 figure there from the ARPA fund into the general fund to cover those costs. And if you could sign it, that'd be great.
Another token to that. yeah.
I'm still waiting. I got
Thanks,
it,
Fran.
but I got the award, but I
Further
didn't get the actual little
It's like you-
placard.
I think it's,
Looks like you've been running
I
the
think
table.
Yeah,
we remiss if we
next year I get a new
mention the
plaque.
fact that the
Yeah.
staff, you know, Diane and the staff have done a fabulous job with, you know, if we've got no audit notes. You know, how many governments have that? Hardly zero. You know, so it's a really true testament to you, the hard work that you do. And the staff does.
Yeah, we have a good team here.
Yeah. we did.
From-
We got a good team, we got a great team.
From the commissioners all the way down. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody works so well together. This is,
You know, Sharon and Jill, you know, in the other room, and particularly with the leadership from Diane.
Right,
I mean,
it's just amazing.
the fact that it's amazing, and it's not just us saying this, I mean,
Yeah, we get the awards.
the awards, are, last time I looked, and it's been a couple of years, there was only 8 governmental entities out of the 200-something governmental entities in New Hampshire that have received that award. And the fact that we received it year after year after year, when some of them will have only received it once
Right.
and then not again
Yeah.
and other stuff.
and we're the only county.
And we're the only county.
Only count. Yeah,
And the state of New Hampshire did receive it once.
They've,
And as far as I know, I don't know if they received it since, but
Yeah.
when I looked a couple years ago, they'd only received it once.
again, and I also do with the staff and the diligence, and we can't thank you enough for what you've done for that, Diane. Even yeah, Jill, the whole team, folks across the street, you know, everybody's just doing a great job.
well, I have to say, when our auditors come in, you know, they were here for 2 weeks and then we uploaded, well, I think we uploaded documents 2 weeks prior to them being here. They were here for 2 weeks and uploaded documents for 2 weeks after. You know, one of the things that they, you know, I think it's their comfort level with the organization that we have, you know, and that's from the ladies that were here, Dot, Cassandra and Linda.
Yeah.
You know, every year, different things get special attention. And nursing home payroll got hit pretty hard with the audit. And they did a fantastic job with that, getting all of the documentations, you know, required. But, you know, Tammy, our auditor, Tammy and her, you know, they do comment that they wish all their audits were this organized. And I really, you know, I'm proud to hear that. And that's because of everybody involved.
And we can't underestimate, you know, the work that Paula Coates has done
Right,
Oh.
since we took her from Carroll
yeah,
and brought her down here. And I mean, I think Diane can probably speak better than I, but
Absolutely. She's a godsend to us. Her knowledge, she's done nursing home billing for 35 years, and to have that, to
Yeah,
have her
experience.
here. Oh, absolutely. She is so smart. She knows so much. I'm learning from her. And I can't say enough about Paula.
yeah, we got something from the state the other day and I didn't understand what it was, so I forwarded it to her and asked her to come down and explain it to me. Which is all good news, of which I'll talk about at some point.
Yeah. Alrighty. All right, so any other little new business?
I just have one item, Mr. Chairman. For the last number of years, probably the last 2 or 3 years, the state has, talked about changing our reimbursement system, for our Medicaid clients
Right.
at the nursing home. So you know that, you know better than anyone, that our current system to date is based on a rug score of 39 categories that's taken off the MDS document, that everybody has to have one done, one main MDS and then quarterly MDSs, and then new MDSs if there's a significant change. That document, MDS doesn't mean anything except minimum data set. So it's not definitive of what the document is, but what it does is when it's filled out, it drives the care plan that exists for every resident in the nursing home.
And then eventually, but drives rates.
And which ultimately also is used to drive rates.
Right.
Well, the state I have long claimed, and a number of other people have long claimed that
Including myself.
that's not truly reflective of the care that's provided to the resident at Riverside. That that we should adopt the federal way of doing it in determining the payment for skilled care. You know, our Part A Medicare, which is, you know, we don't do much of. Partly because of the facility, partly because we don't want to compete with other area nursing homes.
It also didn't do a good job of capturing behavioral health.
So they
That's
switched to a system
big.
called PDPM, which is basically patient-driven payment system. And what they did promise to do, the state, and did do it, was provide us with a sample of our PDPM rate as of July 1st. And it's a substantial increase. So it's pointless, as you know, to quote exact numbers from the state,
Right.
because they change them 5 times before they finalize. But suffice it to say that I asked Dee to reach out to the other county homes, and we got the highest increase out of the 11 or the 10 other county homes.
There were
And
only, I think, 3 that actually got increases. Most of them saw a decrease now.
yeah, and one of them saw a whopping decrease.
Yeah.
And
Was it because of the budget neutrality factor?
no, and in fact, well, the Healthcare Association and what you're reading with community commentaries and stuff, because Brandon Williams has been like going to every newspaper in the free speaking world and complaining about this. He has claimed inaccurately that the average rate is $3 a day less under this new PDPM system as opposed to the old rug system.
Okay.
But he's not doing a true average. What he's doing is taking the proposed rate from every nursing home. But that's deceptive,
It is.
because as an example, Carroll County's little less than half the size
Right.
of us. So when you compare their rate and our rate and then average it,
Yeah.
it doesn't work, because you have so many more residents in one place than the other.
Yeah, that's
Plus, you know that Carroll County takes in excess of 30 private pay people.
right.
So, we have 6 or 8 private pay people.
Yeah, he's comparing apples to cherries again.
And
That's what he's
and
doing.
I don't
I
think,
get it.
he's not doing it intentionally.
Maliciously. no.
I called him and brought it to his attention, and he indicated to me that really wasn't his intent. But he thought there was some room left, to raise the rates a little in a higher distribution.
Right,
I'm not sure that's accurate when you do a true
right.
you know, true determination based on payment.
I think that for a layman's, I'm trying to understand what we're talking about, it's pretty simple. The reimbursement system never recognized behavioral health components. It just never did. So the fact that we have so many Alzheimer's patients or dementia patients in the nursing home, the new rate system is trying to capture that cost.
The care that's necessary
To take care of.
for the clients that we
Right.
care for.
Right, and that's what it's trying to do, which was that's a big step for the state, because the state's never, ever recognized behavioral health in nursing homes with its reimbursement system. It hasn't for years, forever. I mean, when we went first, I was involved, you know, Ray, when we first went to the RUG system and the MDS data set, and I worked with my good friend Mike Lehman upstairs, who likes to come in and testify at our meetings upstairs. He was part of that group that we worked on 20 years ago. But I think at the end of the day, it's trying to recognize with adjustments to rate, the tougher care patients that exist, that have behavioral health problems, which is about 80% right now of our, probably 85% of the folks that we take care of. And hopefully that gets recognized in rates as time goes on, which is, I guess that's what they're trying to do, Ray, at least from
Yeah,
what.
effective July 1st, so.
Right.
We'll see how, I know that the private nursing homes are squawking about
Right.
it, so. We'll see,
How it all
the
shakes
state
out.
has given adequate warning that we are moving to PDPM. They've been
PDPM.
talking about it for
Yeah.
years.
Years.
And finally drew kind of a line in the sand. Because they recognize that the RUG system really is no longer a true indicator of cost of care.
Right.
So I hope that
And
the
that's
state,
important.
I hope the state stands
State
firm.
yeah, it stays behind it because it has a lot to do with recognizing the challenges that the counties have in taking care of these folks. And the other question becomes, what do they do at the end about appropriating the money
Well,
to support? That's,
you know, what the state is
the
doing
data
is
set will tell them
is
that eventually.
recommending a PDPM system that's budget neutral. You know, so they've already built in their
Assumptions.
they've built in their budget neutrality
Charlie
factor. You know.
I haven't been to a state and county finance meeting in a while. It is still running.
Well, David Ross is our representative and over the last few days, I've spoken to, you know, Medicaid officials. I've spoken to the president of our nursing home affiliate, Matt, Lagos from, where's he, Sullivan?
Now?
Yeah, and, you know, cause, which brings me to the next point I'm gonna ask is, I'm asking for your indulgence to perhaps meet next Friday instead of Thursday. I don't know if that's possible.
No problem.
The reason I'm saying that is there is what I consider a significant meeting of the county nursing home administrators. It's by Zoom. But this subject of PDPM, which I don't believe a lot of them understand.
Yeah.
You know, I've been around a long time, plus I've done a ton of research on this in anticipation of it coming into place. And also, there's the state has come down, or CMS has come down with new rules regarding enhanced barrier protection. Remember I warned you about that during survey?
Yeah.
And they've modified the CDC recommendations. Actually, Dee, could you talk about that?
Sure.
Because I've asked Dee to, work with nursing to pilot this, because there's a lot of training that needs to be done. So I asked Dee to come over just to talk about that.
Yeah, so with the with the new enhanced barrier protections, they're identifying, any people that have a multi-drug resistant organisms, which means basically someone who's resistant to multi-drugs that may carry things like MRSA
Yeah.
or C. diff or things like that. So they're forcing us to now categorize residents that come in into categories that may have those MDRO resistance. And then other people who may have wounds or catheters, or feeding tubes, things like that, that we have to show that we're giving enhanced barrier, protection for those people. So we had to identify any that we have in our residents, and right now it looks like we have 18 to 19 people who fall in those categories. So that means each one of those individuals has separate, kind of gowning up and, procedures for, gloves, care, different things, like whether they're having a catheter change or they have a wound that's open, things like that. So we've had to go out and create a whole, policy on how we're going to handle that, which we've done. And then nursing is doing their own training, but myself and Chris Hamilton, who's infection control, are training all the non-nursing departments. So they have an awareness, because we're gonna have like a sticker system so that we don't have to put up a flashlight
Right.
saying someone's got something or whatever. So, we're gonna do the training tomorrow and Monday, hopefully have everything set in place.
How does someone, it must be difficult if someone comes in and has a resistance to certain
Well, in,
medications,
in
right?
this case, what's happening in this case is, we have a number of people that are colonized with a particular
Right,
MDRO.
yeah,
And so in the past, when you're colonized, we have never taken extra barrier precautions. I mean, certainly we
Sure.
use gloves.
No, I did.
And in my 37 years, we've never transferred one of those MDROs to what they're considering to be a vulnerable resident.
right,
And that vulnerable resident is somebody that has a catheter
Yeah.
or somebody that needs wound care. So it's not, it's the person that has the MDRO, even though they're not. Now, in the past, when they're symptomatic, we would always gown up. Okay, that was
Right.
clear. But now they want us to gown up when they are colonized and not symptomatic. But not only that, they want us to gown up for those people that might be more susceptible to catch it because they have a catheter or they have a wound or something else. That's the theory behind the CDC and the and now the MDS taking
there must be some concern about, the contagiousness of
well, there's.
particular, yeah, right, having roommates and having
Well,
particular.
I'll tell you, the other fascinating thing is, this doesn't apply to hospitals.
Yeah.
It's just nursing
How
homes.
is that gonna work with two people in a room? Like you take these precautions for that one person, what about the other person?
Well, that's the theory of it, is
Right.
that you
You're trying to,
ungown, and gown up again if you need to, if these people are together. Now, we're obviously going to make an effort as admissions come and go to team up these people, in rooms. Although that's not the case now.
yeah, right, yeah.
Now
Most
it's
of them
now it's more coincidence than,
Right, and most of them are contact precautions as opposed to airborne or something like that, so it's not like.
Well, yeah, but we
It's
got,
so when you're taking care of or changing a bag or
we got,
putting them, changing their bag, whatever those type of things, other things where they wanna make sure contact precautions are taken
right,
care of.
right, and you got 4 of them sharing a toilet too, so how do you,
a whole nother,
whole nother issue.
it creates, I mean, this is just
This is-
another
that's
example
Another
of
example of the.
what
problem.
happens when
Right.
you have more than one person in a room.
Right,
It creates these kinds of things. So,
How is that gonna affect staff increases that we'll need to?
I don't know that because we haven't started it yet. So let me give you an example. CDC came out with these regulations in 2022. And CMS has never done anything with them. And then in the third week of March, CMS comes out with stealing some of the CDC recommendations, not all of them, but a good portion of them, and gives us 10 days to implement.
After they had already been citing us for it before they even.
Well,
put
they
it in
tried to
place.
cite
Right, they
us.
tried to.
You get a lot
I
of-
guess I need to claim some, I'm sure I gave them some heartburn. They tried to cite us and I contested it and said, no, you can't do that. There's no regulation. It's not possible. And I actually got deficiencies forgiven for other nursing homes that were previously cited. One of them was a county home.
Right,
One of the co-ops county homes got cited in December and they removed that citation. But now, of course, from February first
Right,
on,
it's just.
people can be cited for this. And the interesting part is it's so preventative without definitive proof. It's really anecdotal that you're going to spread it to somebody else.
Right.
We've never had that happen in my whole 37 years. And I get an infection control report every month. And I meet with the infection control. We have an infection control committee that meets every month. And I meet with the infection control supervisor pretty much daily, to learn what's going on. We've never had, so if somebody had something as contagious as C. difficile, which is basically you become, it's overuse of antibiotics. And the antibiotics kill the good bacteria that helps you process your stool and your waste.
I went through that with George.
And we have never had a C. difficile neighbor get it. And that is tremendously, now it's not airborne,
Right.
but I mean, proper hand washing,
Yeah.
gloves, and things is what, and we've never had one transfer to a roommate. We rarely have, I wouldn't say never, because it happened this year. We had 3 cases of the flu that I had reported to you. 2 of the 3 cases were roommates. And 1 was not, but the one that was not never got it. Their roommates never got it. Now, remember, saying the roommates got it is one thing, but the bathroom mates never got it either.
Yeah.
Because we immediately used Tamiflu.
Yeah.
Fortunately, Tamiflu really has no byproduct, nothing to be concerned about. So when somebody has the flu, we keep in our emergency box and in our office of the supervisor's office, we get a order for Tamiflu, we give it to the person that has the flu, we give it to their roommate, and we give it to their bathroom mates. And that's been very effective in us not spreading the flu. But this is just it's another step or thing that we need to do when we don't have, separate. One of the other reasons why CMS is talking about separate rooms. So I just wanted to let you know those were 2.
Okay.
I want to talk, my goal here is to convince the other 10 county homes to establish a similar protocol. So that when we're judged on that protocol by our state inspectors, there's a strength in numbers. I have also reached out to the non-county homes, which is the Healthcare Association, and suggested that we share information. Here's another classic example. A CMS makes it effective April 1st. And the Department of Health for the state's having training in May. You know, they don't even announce the date in May they're having the training yet. So, but after that training, I mean, we have a policy, we're gonna put it in effect April 15th. However, it's a breathing document. It might change after that May training. But I think after that May training, we should get together with the Healthcare Association and have a consistent policy statewide. Cause there is some nuances that we discovered as we were reviewing the regulation. So we'll see how that goes.
How will this increase our staffing?
It could, it
So
could.
is the Medicaid rate gonna increase to accommodate that
No.
for us?
No.
So that's a downshift to the taxes.
Yep.
Yeah, okay,
But as it has that
Yeah.
potential.
exactly.
I mean, we're gonna obviously work it
What's
with
the
the staff we have.
Right, what's the
and-
protocol gets in place, right, you figure that out, what the impact's gonna be.
Right.
Yep. And oh, by the way, everybody at Hyder's gonna have to be gowned. So every resident that we care for at Hyder that's every
They're all
staff
terminal.
member that cares for them will have to
They're all terminal.
be gowned.
Yeah.
So,
Hallelujah.
Well, I don't mind the protocol. It's the fact that we're not gonna be compensated for the extra staffing that we're gonna need to follow. And all the nursing homes not gonna be compensated financially for the increase
Yep.
of staffing and stuff, so.
And then
It's a
it's
real
the
strain on our
increase in the
budget.
supplies
Supplies,
as well.
it's gonna be, the budgets are gonna go nuts.
Yeah, and ARPA isn't covering any COVID supplies now, so it's all on us for all the gowns and
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah, that's my point.
Then you
And
gotta
prices
pay-
haven't come down since COVID.
And you gotta pay, and you gotta pay to dispose of them,
Yeah, so,
yeah, you get all kinds of expenses.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very expensive.
I'll talk to you about gowns after.
we might, when the state was getting out of the business of supplying us, meaning every nursing home, every jail, with supplies regarding COVID, I sent everybody up there to get as many
Right.
supplies as we could. So Chris has just let me know that he has 200 boxes of gowns.
Could be impressive.
So, I mean, like,
Yeah,
we
burn
need to
through.
leave the
Yeah,
jail a
that's it.
few,
Right,
but we
Burn through.
can take the rest.
good.
So that'll be a break in, at least in the first year of us using
Right.
this.
Or 6 months,
Well,
depending
Yeah.
on.
Depends.
Depending on population
We
and
haven't,
staffing.
we haven't quite figured out yet what the deal is, so.
Yeah.
Ready? Well,
I'm sorry, I have nothing else to say. With all this good news,
already,
Should we all sing hallelujah?
yeah, really.
we got item 6 then, questions we got in from the public, we got in the agenda. You got anything for us, Susan, today?
Of course I do.
All right, knock yourself out.
Okay, so. Are we getting closer to having final figures as to what the warming shelter cost us for this year, or is that still a
We
work
haven't,
in
we haven't got a
progress?
final bill, we haven't got a final bill from them yet.
But as soon as we do, I'll share it with you.
I'm just gonna keep asking.
Yeah,
Just
no,
keep prodding you guys
yeah,
on it. Okay, so. December, January, February, March, April. 5 months have gone by since the defeat of the new nursing home.
Mhm.
It's absolutely thrilling to watch the crap in the newspapers. And, I know that you had made a comment at the last meeting, with regard to a particular, delegation member. And Mr. Bauer corrected you that he is pretty much on the same page of that we need to do something about our nursing home. And the banter back and forth in the newspapers, I don't think that it's necessary. And I think that we need to bury the hatchet, call it what you will, move on, extend an olive branch, do something. And then I also want to address the fact that you said that you went to the 12 communities explaining all of this. Well, I was there in August of 21 or 22, whatever year you went. And the agenda was very misleading with the city of Rochester. And it was about the Willand Warming Center, and you got up and you spoke not only about the warming center, but you spoke about the new nursing home.
Right.
I'm not laying blame with you on that. That's the city of Rochester, and I have given them a tongue lashing over that as well. Where, how, the who, what, when, where, and how, where are we gonna go forward? When are we gonna go forward? It's been 5 months. I have talked to some of, I'm sick of this, the Democrats versus the Republicans. It's absolutely disgusting to go to delegation meetings and watch, and I purposefully sit on the Democratic side to watch them, and I'm always sitting in the front row, okay? And they're busy shuffling papers, looking at their phone, talking to each other, and not paying attention to whoever is speaking or whoever's at the podium.
And it goes for both sides.
And it goes, yes, but I really notice it, and I'm sick of, you got a D after your name, you have an R after your name. Let's bury the goddamn hatchet, excuse my language, okay? And
I'm
move
with you.
forward, extend the olive branch. I'm willing to make a few more phone calls to some of the Republican delegation. Yes, I am a Republican. I do have the R after my name, but this has gone on long enough. Okay? And at the last meeting, I think you said it in jest, and you pointed your finger and you said girlfriend to me. I am not, when I'm in this room, a friend. I am your constituent. Outside of here, I truly believe that each one of you, I regard everybody as my friend. And I always speak as much as I can and to be polite, okay? What's it gonna take to move this together? Do you need me to make a few phone calls?
We've offered, we've extended in writing to, the Republican members of the delegation, the offer to meet, to talk about what they would like, what they would support and they wouldn't support. You have to also understand, Susan, that in order to design a facility, you need to spend money.
I understand, and we've spent $2 million already.
Well, I understand that as well, but there's a lot in that $2 million.
I
There's been a
understand
lot of
that.
misrepresentation
Mhm.
made regarding the actual cost of the new
Yes.
facility. Okay,
And
that
I
is-
want to
that's
see everybody,
inaccurate.
excuse me,
yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt, but
Okay.
it's about time I call it what you will.
Yeah.
Get together and just have a good old shout fest and get it out.
I'm all for that.
Because we're just prolonging this. And I sit here and I come to these meetings, okay? And I learn more and more about what's going on in the nursing home, what's going on at the jail, what's going on countywide. And I know that probably a lot of these people don't understand the complicated nature, because I don't understand all of this stuff. And we need to figure this out. And somehow we have to pull this together.
Yeah. Can I just mention one thing?
Go ahead.
We have never originated a letter.
That's correct.
Every letter that we've written has been in response to what we believe to be misinformation.
Okay,
I
so
just wanna say that, we don't.
We don't attack people. We never have. I haven't attacked anybody in 40 years here. We respond to
We
people.
respond to what.
okay, so could we
Somebody
try a
has written.
different tactic and extend the olive branch with a nicely worded letter to them? And you ask for the meeting.
We've done that.
Well, we've done that, but.
Maybe we have to do it
You
again.
know, maybe.
And maybe it needs to be in the newspaper, and maybe it needs to be out there a little bit more so that, hey, here it is. Because, you know, there's a lot of people that don't know that you came and you spoke in Rochester. The only reason why I remembered it is because I was there at that meeting, and I pretty much followed the agenda items very closely. And I just about fell off my chair when you started talking about the new nursing home. And it stuck. And then when this all started coming up, I went back and I had to go, and I literally was going month by month by month, trying to find when you did come, because it is so buried, and even then, the minutes aren't
I don't
accurate.
control what happens. Rob.
And I know, and I said that, I said, it's not your responsibility,
Right.
but how do we move forward?
Can I just,
Sure.
first of all, in the time that I've been here, until recently, we never had the division between an R and a D. We all worked together, the delegation, the members of the delegation that were Republicans were mostly in the minority.
Mhm.
We never considered them minorities, we always worked together, and most of our votes always came out unanimous. We could come to an agreement on that. The problem that I have, is once they found out, they approved moving forward with the nursing home, okay?
The delegation.
The delegation as a whole
Yeah.
moved forward, approved that. When it came to the bonding of getting it started,
They voted
they voted against it. We had given them all the information. We put an RFP out for, request for architects to come in and do that. We gave them all of that information. We were upfront with every piece of information. Now they're taking pieces of information that we had disposed of because it wasn't something that we thought would be in the best interest of moving forward, and throwing that in our face as saying, this is what you could have done. Well,
That's not
and it's not accurate. The information that they're putting out there is disgusting because it's not accurate. We have tried on many, many occasions to work with them and correct that. And all they do is keep attacking us. George put out, a plan that we had originally to move forward to address like the homeless situation, as you well know.
Mhm.
And he called it his three-legged stool. We wanted to, build a new nursing home, convert the old nursing home into transitional housing. Now, we were not planning to spend, we planned to spend minimal money there, and the cities were going to support that, not the county. And we can't do any major construction there because of all the asbestos. That's why we have to move it. So we weren't planning to do that. Well, now it's evolved into them wanting us to do, saying that we're gonna do all this construction for the transients and the transitional housing, which is totally not true.
That's not true.
It's not true. So they're taking bits and pieces of what they think
They're
they
taking
can
selective
get away
narratives.
with. And
Yeah.
I'm just tired of it. And it's just not
Because
fair.
I hear common threads, and it's like, how do we take and put all of you back
For
together
one
again?
thing, they call this the nursing home, the Taj Mahal. They refer to a 5-foot waterfall that was never proposed. They refer to a miniature golf course that's not in the plans. So how do we overcome that? We tell them that it's not true, we show them it's not true, and they keep putting it out there. And that's not fair to us. I mean, we want a safe environment for the people we serve. One of the problems that I have with Riverside is, if somebody is sick and goes to the hospital, okay, they have dementia to begin with, they go to the hospital and they're cared for a week at a time. They normally would come back to Riverside, but they can't come back to Riverside because we can't give them the actual skilled care that they might need for like transfusions and stuff, or pumps or whatever. They have to go to another place. So they have dementia, they've gone to the hospital, now they've gone to another nursing home and have to come back. That's too disruptive to a person. We want to be able to care for them in our nursing facility,
And in fact, the other nursing home that they've gone to for this
yes.
temporary rehab, actually, in some cases, make me sign a letter that we will take that resident back when that skill
And we're
gets
holding
done.
that room.
Cause they don't wanna keep them.
Yeah.
You know, they don't
And
wanna,
you, in the
they
meantime,
actually
you have
make
to
me
keep that
sign a
bed
letter
open.
that says
Keep
that
that
we'll
open.
take them
We
back.
lose revenue there. And the person that's giving the skilled care is getting 4 or 5 times, what, $400 a day or
Oh, they're
something.
getting a lot more than that.
All right,
Getting
whatever they're
$700,
getting, we could be
$800 a day.
getting as revenue at Riverside, as well as keeping the well-being of that resident.
But
So, I'm sorry.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman, that one of your goals after we resolve this last letter to the editor, or last story that was in the Rochester, Times or.
Oh, boys.
Voice.
Rochester boys.
Was, again, in finishing the letter with saying, one thing we do agree on is let's get back together. So this would be our third offer. In addition, they felt that they found an architect that would produce a CMS compliant building for much less money. We called that architect. And when we quoted the money that was quoted in the paper, he didn't say no, he just laughed. His response was laughter. Because there's no way that can be produced. But we've invited the Republicans where they reached out to him to bring him to the table and let's talk.
Right.
We put that in writing, asking them to bring this gentleman to the table and let's talk. But that hasn't happened.
I even called the man who they said, they made this claim, and it's a false claim. It is absolutely false. Period, the end. There's no wiggle room, is false.
Yeah.
I called the gentleman and says, if you can build me a nursing home for $75 or $80 million, we'll sign a contract with you right now. And he laughed at me. He says, I don't build buildings. I said, I've read I've got, matter of fact, I'm gonna give a copy of it to you when you leave. I have his proposal sitting right on my desk. It says in there, we've made multiple assumptions regarding the construction of this home. If any of these assumptions are wrong, our fee will be adjusted based on those additional assumptions.
And that's actually why we didn't hire him in the
That's why we
first
didn't
place,
hire him.
because we were afraid we were giving him a blank check to charge us whatever he wanted. And that's why,
And then during the interview process, he raised his rate.
and
He
then,
raised his
and
agenda.
then he raised his.
He raised his rate.
During the interview process, when we discussed,
The
because
concept.
at the time it was a feasibility study,
Right,
he raised his rates, right to our face.
right to our face.
And we were, and if you think about it, that would be consistent with what he wrote in his proposal.
Correct.
And we were afraid that we were just giving him a blank check.
Right.
And that we just couldn't expose the taxpayers or us to that situation.
So, good information. History,
All you need to do is just
They
read,
told us
all you
that-
need to do is just read the document. That's all you gotta do.
and
But one thing we did come to a consensus is that I think to start with, that the latest discussion was that George was gonna offer to meet with a group of Republicans on his own,
Right.
to see what,
see where we can go.
see what common ground can be
The
done.
threads.
Oh, I think we offered to, either George can meet with
All
a
right.
small group, or we can have a big public meeting.
We'll make public meeting.
We can do it either way.
Do it either way.
Right. I don't have a problem.
We're not trying to have,
No, we're not trying to hide anything, but, we'd make that offer public.
Either way,
Either way, it's
they
fine
want
with
to
us.
do it, move things along.
Yep, if they're willing to do that, we'll do it either way, other way,
And we'll make sure in this next letter that goes out, because we have to answer the stuff that was in the Rochester
Claims.
paper and, in this next letter, we will again offer, for the third time, we will again offer a meeting the way, that Commissioner Watson
Either way.
put it forward. We'll offer it either way. And hopefully we'll get a meeting together and we'll be able to move forward.
But you also have to understand, Susan, that money, the initial money that we needed to design a facility, to pick the site, the size, the cost, they voted against. They said they supported it. The initial money that you need to even design anything, I don't care if it's a tent, they voted against. Even though they told us they supported it, they voted against the initial design. I don't know how you can be for a nursing home or say you're for any of these things if you don't produce at least some money or vote for some money to design it. I don't care how it's designed. I've said that 1,000 times.
And they say, and the other arbitrary thing that's said is they say that it's wasted money.
It's not wasted.
Digging in the ground, having-
And that's where
that's not wasted money.
we have differences, and when you have to have surveying done, you have to have soil testing done, you have to have wetland, I worked in all of this, and
Right.
that is hardcore. Whether you decide to build there or not, you have to have that, and it's vital information, whether you put a nursing home there or
Right.
500 years from now, you decide to do
Right.
something like.
Have that
You
information.
it's
So it's not
the
wasted
solid.
money.
And it's
And
information.
I personally never viewed that as wasted money. I just wanna see it, figure out a way, because there are common threads. And sometimes you have to rise above it
Mhm.
and figure out how to move along. And it's been 5 months, and I know that there was a lot, the building committee, let's get together, let's discuss, and maybe you can throw it out there. You pick 3 representatives from the Republicans, 3 Democrats, and you 3, and you sit in the round table. It's open to the public, and you guys can hash it out. I don't know, I'm just throwing out
No,
some ideas.
No, I think you're right.
I don't disagree with that, okay? The problem we had when we had the second building committee was that when we had the meeting and the architect was here, it was Representative Newton that said, there's too much information here. This should be shared with the entire delegation. We don't want to have any more building committee meetings. There's too much information here. Let's bring it all to a workshop of the whole delegation. That was his recommendation, and we followed it. And as soon as we went upstairs, he sabotaged it. Okay? I don't know why he did that, and you'll have to ask him. But he led the Republicans to sabotage it after he asked for that procedure to be used. So you can't sit here, you can't sit back and say, okay, let's have the big meeting. Well, I'll meet with these people day and night, 7 days a week. I don't care where, how. I've met with meeting people for 50 years, okay?
Yeah.
I'll listen to everything they have to say. But at the end of the day, if they agree to something, and then when we go forward with what they want, and then they turn around and sabotage it, which is what they did, okay? That's the facts. That's not something I'm making up. That's what he did. He didn't want the building committee to meet anymore. He wanted to go before the full delegation, have a delegation meeting of the whole.
Now, we had several of them.
We had several of those at his request, okay? And then he spent all his time while he was there to sabotage it. I don't know why. You'll have to ask him, okay?
Oh, I will.
Because that's what he did. Okay, now I was here, that's what he did. We agreed to it.
Yeah, and I appreciate the history.
Well, history is important.
I understand history is important,
History is important.
but let's also try to find the positive, and I don't mean to be a
Sure, I get
Pollyanna
that. No,
about
I get
it,
that.
but the positive and
I don't have a
figure out
problem.
a way to move forward. We've had 5 months, and we've had the crap go back and forth. And let's see if we can,
During that 5 months, we've also lost $15 million. Because we had money coming in from the state that would.
Yeah,
that
through
we
opera.
could use through opera, and we've lost that.
Which was another reason why we were under such a time constraint to move as quickly as we could.
and I've heard different things about that, and I will plead ignorance on it because I have not.
Well, there's
It's
no,
not
it's not open for
I thought-
discussion.
I thought that we had till December, but.
That is
No,
not true.
actually, we have a letter we'll be happy to provide to
It's
you.
not true.
Right.
It's not, all that stuff is not true. The claims that were made to say, we can get this money whenever we want, we can apply for this money a year from now, that is all false. It is absolutely
In
false.
fact, you don't leave. Diane's
Yeah.
printing the letter right now.
But I think we all wanna
We all
move the
have-
progress,
Sure.
moving forward, so, you know, I
Let's
think
have a
at this
meeting.
point, we're just rehashing stuff, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
But I think we
agree.
agree, we wanna move forward.
We want to move forward in a
You know,
responsible way.
Exactly, so.
We're all taxpayers. We don't want to pay any more than anyone else. But we want a safe environment and an environment that's going to be,
I understand.
save us money in the long run so that we can continue to provide the care that we need. to
Okay.
people.
And
They were running a little behind, so.
They are good. Thank you.
so, thank you for your time. Thank you
All
for
right.
the discussion. And, when I walk out the door, you're
We'll
a friend.
see, I'll see.
Oh, I know.
Well, said, yeah.
It's to be friends in this room.
No, no, but I feel like I'm the constituent.
Here's Diane, don't walk out without that letter.
Yes, sir.
My constituents are
Please.
my friends. I mean,
And I just want to see, because I come here because I know that there's two sides to every story.
Well, I agree.
And somewhere in the middle lies the truth.
exactly.
And a wise man built his house upon a rock. Never forget
This,
that.
he said, and she said, and when, then what really happened?
Exactly,
So.
exactly.
But,
Yeah, hang on, it's
Yeah,
printing, I
if you
can
could
hear it.
sign.
Initial this?
if you could, all three of you sign, and remember correctly, at the last meeting, David Victor tried to
Okay.
put a motion to ask us to
I
extend.
got a motion to move into non-public.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Remember,
seconded by
you
Mr.
made a
Watson.
motion that wanted to
Roll call,
extend the
Commissioner Watson.
deadline to
Yeah.
talk about. the-
Commissioner Rowe, yes, to go into
Yes.
executive session, myself, executive
I'm
session.
trying to find
No, I know, but I
something to-
Commissioner will adjourn to executive
Just, I just wanna
session.
put David Victor.
Wait, I'm gonna head back over.
Yeah, thanks, kid.
You need anything?
No.
That's-
Find a way to include me in that training on Monday and Tuesday.
Yes, absolutely. How we should move forward. And they went into caucus.